Hey, Brian.
Martha, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great and it's getting better each and every single day. How you doing?
Good, good. I just sent you a message. Wasn't sure you were still on, but here we are.
All righty. And where you calling in from?
San Diego.
Ah,
And
okay.
where are you?
Philadelphia.
Okay, cool. I like Philadelphia.
Yes. This is going to be a powerful interview, and I appreciate you coming on my platform today.
That's okay. Just give me another quick rundown on your audience, and I've booked 1 hour, 10 to 11. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yes, and I told a great friend of mine about you, and he specializes in mergers and acquisitions and online businesses and in private equity. His name is Gordon Bazar. He actually is in your neck of the woods in California.
Okay.
And I told him what you was doing in the entrepreneurial space. And I know you was the founder of the Uggs brand. And he went to your website and he was blown away by what you're doing in the entrepreneurial space.
Oh,
So he
great.
wants to know if y'all can do a 30-minute conference call, see how y'all can create value for one another.
Okay. If you put me in touch with him, I'd love to do that.
All righty. Okay, so once we finish doing this interview, I'll get some dates and times, then I'll send them to you, and then we can all get on the conference call, and then he's going to tell you exactly what he does in the entrepreneurial space, and see how y'all can create some synergy for one another.
Okay, that sounds good. It's how it works.
Yes. So
Do you have a format in mind? Do you have a list of questions, or do you want to, just want to start about, the early days of Ugg and how I built the business, or how do you want to do it?
Yes, I'm definitely want to talk about your book, The Birth of a Brand.
Right.
And then we're going to talk about, how you built the great phenomena, the Uggs brand, to the humble beginnings to when you actually sold the brand.
Sounds
and
good.
what you got going on today in the entrepreneurial space.
Okay, perfect.
All righty. Okay, are you ready?
Whenever you are, man.
All righty. Start. Okay, here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Arthur Robinson Jr. I'm the creator and host of the Powerful Interviews podcast. And today I have another special interview for each and every one of you. Today I have a wonderful person on the show. He's a great friend of mine. His name is Brian Smith. For those that don't know Brian, let me explain to you about this incredible, phenomenal man. Brian Smith is the owner and founder of the Uggs brand. And he is a published author and incredible speaker. And he speaks all over the world and teaching entrepreneurs about the power of empowerment and about the power of building a outside the box brand. He is the best-selling author of his phenomenal book, which is called The Birth of a Brand. And that is an awesome, impressive resume. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome the one, the only, the powerful Brian Smith to the show.
Hey, thank you, Arthur. Great to be here, buddy.
I'd like to thank you, Brian, for taking time out of your busy schedule to educate me and the audience worldwide about how you build the Ugg brand. And we're going to talk about your phenomenal book, The Birth of a Brand. I gladly appreciate it.
Okay. Well, far away. What would you like to know?
To everyone that's listening, I highly recommend go and get your pen and your pad right now. My great friend Brian Smith is going to break down layman's terms about how he built the Ugg boots brand. And we're going to talk about his phenomenal intellectual property, which is his book, The Birth of a Brand. Is that correct, Brian?
Yep, sounds good.
Now, what I'd like to know, can you explain to the audience in layman's terms, who is the phenomenal Brian Smith? How long you been in your powerful industry? And what is your expertise?
Okay. Powerful, that's a funny word, but I've been pretty successful in building several businesses, and it started out in an unusual way. I was an accountant at CPA in Australia, and it took me 10 years to graduate, and I quit the same day I graduated because I really hated accounting. And I was sort of, hanging around in my neighborhood for a couple of weeks wondering, what the hell am I going to do with myself? I knew I wanted to get into business somehow. And I just had bought the brand new album, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. And I was listening to the second song, and the words went, tired of lying in the sunshine, staying home to watch the rain. You are young and life is long and there is time to kill today. And I went, oh shit, he's talking to me. And then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. And as soon as I heard that, I just got goosebumps all over. And I thought, shit, all my friends are tracking off to partnerships in the accounting business, or other friends who got into business straight out of high school were doing really well. And I felt like I'd been running on the spot for 10 years. And I just started yoga and meditation back then. And I was meditating one morning and thought, I got these goosebumps again. And it came to me that all of the best brands in Australia were coming out of California, like Levi jeans and waterbeds and surf brands and skate brands. And I said, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to find the next big thing to bring back to Australia. So within a couple of, less than a week, I had a ticket to LAX, and I arrived in Los Angeles with my surfboard and my suitcase. And I rented a little house in Santa Monica, and went straight up to Malibu to go surfing, because that had always been a really big dream of mine. Excuse me a sec. And I was, surfing there for a month, made a ton of friends, but didn't find the next big thing, and another couple of months, and, it got to be September, October, and the wind was getting chilly and the water was pretty cold. And I remember finishing up a surf, and I was pulling on my sheepskin boots that I'd brought from Australia. And I thought, this goosebumps hit me all over again. And I go, my God, there's no sheepskin boots in America. And I would say 1 in 2 Australians own some sort of sheepskin footwear. So I had this incredible aha, and I had a buddy with me, and I said, man, we got to go into business, man. We're going to be instant millionaires, And every entrepreneur has that aha moment when they really hit what is going to be a big deal. And so.
Now, are you originally from Australia?
Yeah, from Australia, yeah. And we went back home to my house in Santa Monica, and we did some research and called up a manufacturer in Western Australia. And we, long story short, we got to be the distributor of his boots. So we sent down $500 and bought a couple of pairs of samples. And when they arrived, Doug was going to be the salesman, because I was an accountant. I was terrified of sales. And he got his samples, and he started going around all the shoe retailers, and came back a week later with about 150 business cards and no orders. And he said, Brian, they tell me we're crazy trying to sell sheepskin in California. And I sort of understood what they were thinking, but Australia's climate's identical to California. So that wasn't the real reason. And then, as an entrepreneur, you have to sort of think laterally and pivot. I thought, well, how come all my buddies up at Malibu think this is the best idea in the world? And it struck us that all the California surfers who'd been down to Australia on their surf trips had bought a half a dozen pairs of boots back each for their buddies. And so in the surf market, everybody knew what UGG was, and they knew sheepskin boots. So Doug and I decided, okay, we'll switch gears. We'll head down to the surf shops. And he took the San Fernando Valley area, and I took all the beaches. And I started off in Malibu, heading down south. And every time I walked into the store, I was terrified at first, but I'd open up my bag and I'd show the sample boots, and they go, oh my God, UGG boots, they're the greatest. What are you doing with those? And I said, well, we're thinking of importing them. And oh my God, you're going to make a fortune. They're the best things in the world,
Right.
And each store I went into was going, oh man, what a great idea. I love UGG boots, And so me and Doug, we never really stopped to think that we hadn't asked for any orders, because we didn't have any inventory. So what was the point? So we got back after a week, and and said, shit, this is going to be so huge. You know, how do we get some inventory? So by a sort of a fluke, you know, the universe, once you start out on a path, the universe always conspires to work with you. That's a very ancient saying. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about, God, we need some capital to buy product. And my roommate overheard us, and he had a couple of guys at his office that were looking for investments. So just like that, without even writing a business plan, we raised 20 grand, which in today's money is about 75,000. And we sent 15 down to Australia and ordered 500 pairs of boots. And so then, you know, they finally arrived in late November, early December, and Doug and I stored them all up in the third bedroom of the house in Santa Monica. You know, that's now the headquarters of Ugg. And we packed up our big duffel bags full of sizes and colors and styles and everything. And we both headed out again to make our fortune, you know. And you know, I remember going down to the very first store I went to before. You know, he said it was going to be fantastic. And I showed him, okay, how many do you want? And this time I've got the order pad. And he goes, oh, well done, Brian. But, you know, we couldn't sell them in our store. We just sell surfboards and bikinis and flip-flops, you know. But don't worry, you're going to make a fortune in the shoe stores. And I just felt, oh, shit, you know. And I went to the next one. And it's, hey, Brian, well done, man. But, you know, we couldn't sell them in our stores. We sell surfboards and bikinis and trunks and sandals, you know. But, you know, you're going to kill it in the shoe stores. And so this went on all the way down the coast, and Doug was getting the same reaction up in the valley. And we finally met up and we tallied up the orders for the first year's sales of Ugg, and it was 28 pairs, exactly $1,000. And we just looked at each other and just went, oh shit, you know, what have we done? You know, so that was like, you know, the beginning of Ugg. But I wrote that book. We talked about the book, The Birth of a Brand. I've got a copy of it here. The theme of the book is that you can't give birth to adults, right? Every entrepreneur, every person in the world, like they start out with this huge idea. That's the conception, and then they take the first action, and that's the birth. So the birth of Ugg was buying 6 pairs of samples, right? And then every movement or business or whatever just lies there. It's like an infant, and it lies there, and you got to keep feeding it and change the diapers and feeding it. And, you know, you have to just nurture it and hope that pretty soon it'll start toddling, which it does. And toddling for a business is when, you know, the first magazines are writing articles about you, and the first true believers are telling all their friends about your product and everything. And then that goes eventually into the youth, which is a great phase because you've got consistent, you know, ordering coming in, and production's working, and the shipping and billing and the warehouse is working, and sales is working. And that's a great phase of every business. You can run a $25 million company on that youth phase. But if it's a really great product or a really great idea, it's going to hit the teenage years, which is, you probably remember when you're a teenager, you wanted to be in every party in town, right? Every Friday night, right? Well, it's the same in business. You want to be in every major trade show, and you want to be in every mass retailer, and it's super easy to outstrip your capital and go broke at that point. So you got to be very careful in those teenage years, and then eventually it becomes mature. So that selling 28 pairs was, you know, I didn't realize it at the time, but that was like going into the infancy of Ugg.
Now, you and your team over the years, you know, y'all built the Ugg brand to, you know, 1.8 billion in global sales. What would you say was the formula for, you know, taking the Ugg boots brand and turning it into a great phenomenon brand?
Okay. Well, the answer to that piggybacks right on the story I was just telling, right? So, you know, Doug and I are faced with a dilemma. Do we try and keep doing it, or do we give up? Right? And it obviously couldn't pay for us. So Doug got another job, and I got stuck with getting rid of 480 pairs of boots because all the investors' money was in my third bedroom, you know? So at
that time, how many investors you had?
Just the one.
Okay.
Just the one. And so I started doing street fairs and swap meets and, you know, local, sales things. And the best thing I had going was the back of my van. When I'd go surfing at Malibu, I had a big van and I had all the product in the back of the van. So after I finished surfing, I'd just open up the doors of the van and I had all these customers just coming. It was like a real retail store. Everybody knew that there were Ugg boots at Malibu parking lot, And so the next year I sold about $5,000 worth and I thought that's not much. So I just decided to start advertising. And so I, hired these models and an expensive photographer and we posed them on the beach at Wind and Sea in La Jolla in California and the perfect hair and perfect clothing and perfect, sunset and the boots were like the major part of the ad and I ran them the next year and the sales went to $10,000. So got another summer job. Like this was 3 years of getting summer jobs, right?
Right.
So the next year I thought, okay, I'll get better looking models and a more expensive photographer. And so we posed them at the beach at Wind and Sea again with a perfect everything. And the sales went to like 20,000. And that was when I decided this is never going to work. I'm just going to give up, But over the next summer, I was working on this golf course, and one day this huge storm came through in October, which every year the big storm in October always starts the beginning of winter for Californians, right? And I got home and there's like 30 messages on my answering machine from all these retailers wanting to come down and get product because everyone was coming into the store asking for them. So I decided, okay, well I'll give it one more season, but this time it's I had a beer with one of my surf shop owners and I said, I'm doing all this advertising and nothing's working. And he said, oh, shut up, Brian. And he calls out the back to all these little 12, 13-year-old Grammys and he says, what do you guys think of Ugg? Every one of them just went, oh, those Uggs, man, they're so fake. Have you seen those ads? Those models, they can't surf. And as soon as I heard that, I went, oh, shit, I've been sending the wrong message to my target market for like 3 years. And so, again, like every entrepreneur here, you have to pivot. So I called up a buddy who was running this Scholastic Surf Association in Orange County. And I said, hey, Pete, do you have any young kids who are going to turn pro soon? And he gave me a couple. There's Mike Parsons and Ted Robinson. And instead of getting an expensive photographer, I just took my little Canon Sure Shot. And, we went surfing at Black's Beach in La Jolla and Trestles in San Onofre. And these are the walk is about a mile to get to the beach. And there's fantastic surf when you get there. And I just was shooting photos of us walking to the beach and hanging out, And I selected one of those photos and did the ad in October and November and December. And it was just the boys walking to the beach. And the sales went to $280,000.
Wow.
And why? Because I matched the image of what all these little kids, they just wanted to be in that ad so badly. They would love to be going to, Black's Beach with Mike Parsons, or Trestles with Ted Robinson, And I figured out how to get into the psyche of my customer. And that was the answer to your question. How did it build? I figured out the importance of advertising where you never advertise your product. All those first years the boot was like the major part of the ad. But in the ads that I ran that were successful, the boots were tiny. You could hardly even see them. It was all about the ambience and the feeling. And God, I wish I was on that walk with Mike Parsons, And that was something I was able to take from the surf market into the skiing and snowboarding market because snowboarding was just starting then. And then when I eventually got it, out, really well done in the West, I had to try and figure out, well, what do kids do in the East? And I found out so many of them play hockey. They go to the hockey rinks and, you got to change shoes and the moms are in the rinks getting freezing feet, And so I got that same advertising thing going with the youth hockey players. And that was really what started to develop the momentum and the coolness. Because it was a very, very cool product. If you had a pair of Uggs when you were a teenager in high school, man, you were pretty cool. And that was because I was able to get into the psyche of these kids through those, those celebrities.
So you went from 20,000 in sales in over a period of time. You scaled to 280,000 in sales
That was
selling the
like
UGG boots.
one season. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, over here, they basically love UGG boots, especially women. I mean,
Yeah.
like they just, have a deep passion for the boots and they love buying the boots, especially around the holiday times. Or it
Yeah.
doesn't matter really any season, they invest in the UGG boots. Did you come up with the name UGG or did your team help you create the name?
No, the name Ugg was descriptive of sheepskin boots in Australia, and
Mm-hmm.
there were all sorts of little tiny manufacturers in every little sheep town,
Mm-hmm.
and there would be UG or UGG or UGH or UGHS, and nobody at the time registered the mark. So when I realized there were no sheepskin boots in America, I registered the UGG mark and I created a logo around that.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't invent the name, but I was, the registration in America turned out to be a very powerful thing. And that eventually went to worldwide trademark rights. So yeah, building the brand around the name was really what made the thing work.
So basically, you got the name trademarked.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
All righty.
That's always important for every entrepreneur. You're going to pick a trademark that's, hopefully descriptive of what you do, but that's getting harder and harder these days. But just making sure that you have a really good, consistent use of a trademark, and because that will eventually become the brand. Like a trademark isn't a brand, and your patents aren't a brand. Your brand is what customers think of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you, with your trademark, have a really high quality image, you'll get a real good following of that type of customer. If you have a more funky trademark and you're going after a younger, different generation, you've still got to use the trademark in a way that fits that audience, and eventually the trademark becomes indicative of what your brand is. And your brand is how you treat your customers and how you deliver and how you follow up, and what interaction they can have with you. So branding is very different from owning a trademark.
Okay. So your brand is your promise.
Your brand, that's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, your brand is what you promise the customer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All righty. So let's talk about the power of using video. Now, I know a couple of years back, Google bought YouTube for $1.6 billion. So
Right.
video is hot right now. Can you explain to the audience the power of using video? And should entrepreneurs and business owners use video to expand their brand?
Yeah. In fact, back I sold the Ugg company in the late 90s, right? So I don't take credit for the current billions, although they could never have got there without the 20 years that I put in the beginning. So, so the internet was just starting around about the time I sold the company. So
how much did you sell the company for?
Well, we don't talk about that, but it was a lot of money, more than ever I expected to make,
Okay.
But all of the marketing up to that time was magazines and, traditional radio, TV. But the internet came along and it changed the game for everybody. And there was one thing I learned at the beginning of Ugg. I was going to run that very first ad, in Action Sports Retailer, and I went down to the magazine and he said, "Hey, it's $2,000 for 2 issues, or it's $1,000 for 1 issue and $1,500 for 2 issues." And I said, "Oh, should I haven't even started business. I can't afford to be like that." And he said, "Brian, it's not how big you are, it's how big you are perceived to be that counts, right?" And I ended up buying 2 ads, right? Even though we didn't have any product, but I was going to get that. And that stuck with me ever since. Now, since the internet's come along, that statement has a whole new meaning, because back when I was doing it, to be big, you had to be big. You had to have a warehouse and a front stuff and, you know, telephone lines and all that sort of stuff. You had to have the walk, right?
Right. Or infomercial.
Yeah, but now with the internet, you could be working out of your garage, and if you're really good with video and graphics and all that sort of stuff, your ad can, your website can look as sophisticated as a Fortune 500 company, right? Even though you're working out of your garage. So that logic still applies. You want to, the image you portray to the public has got to be really, really slick and really dynamic and showing the value of who you want to be. Even if you're not there yet, it's who you want to be, and that's the image that you show. So the internet, and especially video, has done a lot to do that. Now, I'm going to switch gears on you here for a second, because this pandemic, like I've been on the road speaking for the last 4 or 5 years and helping entrepreneurs, and I speak to entrepreneurial audiences, and you know, the Inc. 5000 conference with 2,000 or 3,000 people in the audience. So I love helping entrepreneurs, but when the COVID thing hit, all my speaking engagements disappeared, like overnight, right?
Right. The income disappeared.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm thinking, okay, what the hell will I do? And a couple of years ago, I invested a little bit of money in this live action shopping program, right? Is a platform where people can load up what they want to sell in the store on our platform, and then they go live on like a Facebook Live, and they hold up each item, you know, like they want to sell the book, you know, and they talk about it, but, you know, mostly it's clothing and jewelry and stuff like that, and they talk about it, and the viewers they got a button, they can buy it right off the website, right? So video has become critical now in this new business. It's called Lash, L-A-S-H, Lash.live, and it's for, Lash means live action shopping. And there's a chat box going up the screen, so people, you know, all the buyers are all talking to each other, and they're interacting with the people selling, and there's like a whole community thing happening. And so what our plan is to get more and more buyers to come and view it, which we know how we're going to do. But also we got to get a whole bunch of new sellers. Now, let's say you own a retail store, your men's clothing store, or a boutique, or, you know, some hobby store like biking or something like that, that you're doing, and then COVID hit, and bam, no customers, right? So we are now the retail outlet for all of these people who got stuck with lack of customers. So they're coming on our site, they're loading up all of their all of their products, and they have them in order. And then, like if it's a rack of clothes, they just start with number 1 and they hold it up, and prices there, and the click buttons there, and the chats there, and it's becoming really, really successful. So you know, could never have done that without video.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of e-commerce businesses, they basically are built on, you know, goods and services.
That's right.
And how are your businesses surviving with the coronavirus?
It's really interesting. You know, for everyone I know that has been hurt, I know somebody who's making a killing during this time.
That's right.
It's bizarre. It's like changing the way everybody, I think it's sort of healthy in a way that we all became so depending on eating out 5 times a week, you know, and just buying shit every time you go into a store, you know, or, you know, we became so dependent on everything that had been built up before us, that suddenly when it all got taken away, we had to start reinventing ourselves. And now I eat at home like 6 nights a week, you know, I hardly ever go out. And I'm just as healthy. I make save a lot of money. And it's the same with purchasing. People now are switching over to online purchasing, but there's 2 types of online. There's the Amazon and the Etsy, where people just post their products and they hope that they will come up in a search, right? They hope someone will be looking for their product, right? That's really tough selling, or tough, you know, to get your product out. But with the Lash process, when you load up your store, we've got a method of sending an email and a text and a Instagram tweet out to everybody who's in their following. And we say, hey, 5 o'clock Thursday night, I'm going live with all these specials, right? And so instead of you having to have a retail store waiting for people to come in, you now tell them where your retail store is going to be online, and you invite them all in at 4 or 5 o'clock, whatever. And then you've suddenly got a couple of hundred buyers who are there to watch you sell everything online. So it's, our customers are making thousands and thousands of dollars in less than an hour. So it's really a good way to help those retailers who have lost their customers.
So your customers, they are generating passive income month after month?
Well, no, it's active income because they've got to be on the live sale to sell it. But they only have, like our retailers, they come on maybe twice a month, but they'll make a lot of money in that 1 hour. And then they've still got their online business to ship and everything. So it's just an extra retail outlet for them.
Yes, I know with the coronavirus, that's a big epidemic, that's, taking the world by storm on a national, international level. And a lot of wealthy people are making money during, a depression or a recession. And then, unfortunately, some service-based businesses owners are getting hit hard with the coronavirus because, they had to actively be there in order for them to generate sales. That's going to increase their revenues.
Yeah.
Now, you pretty much travel all over the world, but like you said, your income basically dropped in the speaking industry.
Yeah.
Now, in the speaking industry, that's a $780 billion industry. So it's been booming, throughout the whole years.
Yeah.
And you create your own intellectual property, which is called The Birth of a Brand.
Right.
And I love the title. Now, when you speak on stages, you basically memorize the audiences with your story. So would you say that facts tell, but stories always sell?
Without a doubt. I have nothing but stories. I've already told you a couple today,
Yes.
And that's what people remember, but there's got to be a point to the stories. And so I can go on to stages in front of all different types of audiences, and I sort of know whether if they're coming from a sales background or a product background or financial services background. I can always tailor the stories to meet the audience because in general all business is the same. It's just the product's different and the way you sell it's different. So that's been in fact the birth of a brand, that is nothing but story after story after story. And they're not all good stories. I mean, it's more like disaster after disaster after disaster. But each time, like, business doesn't start here and go straight to the top, right? You cruise along, you hit a wall, and you got a choice. I can give up or I can try and figure it out, right? And if you overcome that obstacle, you cruise along and you hit another wall and you got another choice. Do I give up? And so each time you overcome one, you're getting a competitive advantage against all your competitors, right? Every time you can figure out a new way to do something or get around a problem. And that's really, eventually how you get to the top. And each one of these is like a big disappointment. But one of the points in my book is that your most disappointing disappointments will always become your greatest blessings. And I ask people on the stage, I say, look, put your hands up if in the last 12 months something happened in your business or your personal life that at the time was a huge disaster, and now you look back and think, God, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I swear 80% of the people put their hands up because it's just so common that when you hit a wall, just like coronavirus is a wall, it's a chance to look around and say, well, shit, what else could I do? And like, I'm happier now with my new lash business. I'm having more fun and I've got my creative juices going again, and it's back in the startup phase where it's uncertain and, I have no idea what's coming down next week, That's so much more fun for me than speaking ever was. even though I enjoyed speaking, right?
Mm.
So that losing all the speaking gigs was a disappointment, but the blessing is I'm loving my life more now than I was when I was doing the speaking. So
Mm.
that's a really important thing to remember.
So you say your greatest disappointments are your blessings.
They will always,
So
yeah,
so your lessons are the blessings.
that's right. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Wow. Now you basically you sold the Ugg boots brand back in the mid 90s. Is that correct?
Late 90s, yeah.
Alrighty. Now I know back then that was I would say your precious baby, because I know when
Yeah,
people build a phenomenal brand, they have a hard time, selling the brand. Let's say they sell the brand on the New York Stock Exchange, or they sell it to a private or a
right,
public company for X amount of dollars.
right.
What was your thought process back then when you actually sold the brand? Were you like, I want to wait a while and, generate more, income for selling the brand for, 5 times the multiple?
Yeah.
Or did you just had the state of mind, like, I'm going to sell the brand right now and I'm going to be satisfied for
Well,
what they
that's really,
offer?
I totally know where you're going. It's a great question. And for every entrepreneur, it's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you remember when I was talking about having the van at the parking lot in Malibu?
Yes.
Well, 3 or 4 spaces up was another van, and a guy called Doug Otto was selling these sandals, and they were triple deckers. They were pink, yellow, pink neoprene with, like thongs, the flip flops.
Mm-hmm.
And he called them triple deckers, and his company was called Deckers. Well,
Wow.
over the years, we kept crisscrossing, and we'd be in surf shops trying to sell our product, or sporting goods stores, and we used to joke, hey, you should buy me out. Oh, you can't afford it. No, we would joke about that.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, over the 20 years that we were building the businesses, Ugg was getting stronger and stronger, and he had taken on the license for a sandal called Teva. And Teva was a really big brand in outdoor market. When the outdoor market took off, he went public with that.
Mm-hmm.
And he had, about 60 million in sales at the time, and he raised a shitload of money and was public, right? So over my course of 20 years, I built the business, 8 million, 12 million, 16 million. And then we just finished the season, and it looked like it was just like really taking off. And I knew the next season was going to be about 25 million in sales. And I had no way to finance the production. It got so big that all of my financing sources just said, Brian, it's too scary for us. We can't take that increase. And so I was heading out to a big trade show in Atlanta called the Super Show, and a big sporting goods show, and we had a booth there, and I was in the baggage claim at Atlanta airport, and I looked way down the end of the airport, and there's Doug Otto, from Deckers.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got these goosebumps again. And I went, oh, shit, it's perfect. Because I knew he had about 25 million in the bank, from the IPO.
Mm-hmm.
And
Initial public offering.
I didn't know how to finance my season. And I knew that his sales died every winter, and
Right.
our sales died every summer. So I thought, we put these two together. It's a perfect balance. You've got a year-round business, really well capitalized. And so I walked up to him, and we high-fived, and I said, Doug, if ever we're going to do it, now's the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that afternoon, we had the accountants talking to each other, and later that year, we sold the company. So it was just like me going public without having to go public. We just cashed out. It was fantastic.
So when y'all sold the powerful company, y'all basically sold it on the public sector?
Deckers was already public, yeah. So we just sold it straight to Deckers. So it just became another brand in there. in their lineup.
Now, deep in your heart, I know you was attached to the Uggs brand at that time. Do you regret selling the brand?
You know, you know how I have that theme, you can't give birth to adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you become mature, it's like raising a little daughter, right? I've got 2 daughters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you raise them up and you get them through preschool, and then you get them through junior school, then you get them through high school, which is a hard one. Then you get them into college, right? But it's, you always know at some point they're going to meet someone and get married, right?
That's true.
And you don't lose them, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just changes. Well, I had the attitude with the Ugg business. I got this thing through maturity, and now we're doing 18, 20 million. That's a pretty substantial business. But I knew that I didn't have the skill to take it up into the billions. Because I just hate the corporate structures, and I even with my company at 15 million, I was getting burned out by all the the politics inside the company and everything. And I love the startup. I love the unknown and the danger and the rough and tumble part of business. When it gets into these highly corporate structures, I lose interest. And so I knew that I was not going to be the person to take it up into the hundreds of millions. So that's why I looked at, walking it down the aisle and handing it off to Doug Otto was like the equivalent of letting her go and be married to a bigger company. Right? So yeah, it was emotional, but I'm still very much part of the brand. I've been speaking about it for years. I write about it, and when I'm doing all my coaching, to various people, I often bring up, situations from Ugg. So I didn't just let it go and walk away from it forever. It's always been part of me. It always will be. And but there are other people running it now, which thank God they're doing really well.
Now, you say you still a part of the Uggs boots brand. So whenever a woman or a man that you're close to, if they want some boots, you can get them immediately.
That's such a funny question. Yeah, I just call up and order them. And, I do favors for my friends occasionally, but, it's not something I do. In fact, lately, nobody ever hits me up anymore. They think I'm out of it completely.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, I would imagine since you were a part of that great, powerful brand that you would actually get the boots for free.
Yeah, well, we got a pretty good deal going.
Okay. Brian, can you explain to the audience what is the best advice that you have ever received?
What a great question. I think the best answer for now is that I had this mentor, and he gave me 2 bits of advice, really. I'll share the first one, which is, if you can't act effectively, don't act. Right? If you don't have enough information, don't get rushed into having to make a decision because somebody else wants a decision. If you can't act effectively, you're better off not acting than rushing into an act that's going to be wrong, right? But if you have time to sort of sit back and get more information in and think, okay, now I'm comfortable to make the decision, then you can act, right? And it still may be wrong. It doesn't matter, because every wrong thing leads you to that obstacle, and you have to overcome it anyway. So acting wrong is not bad. In fact, acting wrong is quite good sometimes in any company, because it shows you what you shouldn't be doing and gives you better insight into what to do. So, but just don't ever get pushed into acting because other people want you to do it.
Absolutely.
And the other thing was, when we had a product like Ugg boots. Okay, we had different styles and colors and sizes, and but you couldn't patent a boot. You can't patent a shoe unless it's really remarkable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't patent a color and you can't patent designs, you know. And so we had this mantra that, you know, forget about the competition.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just get out first and run faster.
Mm.
Right? So if you're worried, you know, you think, oh, I've got this great product, I want to get started in my business, but I'm scared someone's going to rip it off me, right? Mm-hmm. That's just debilitating. You can't get stuck in that mentality because, number one, people don't have the creativity that you have.
Right.
They may see it, they may even try to knock it off, but they don't see what you have planned down the line. They can only see what you did last week and copy it. But if you're in a really good business and you're a good thinker, just get started. The bottom line is just to get started and then take it as it comes, right? But if you can get out front and then keep running faster than the others, that's the purest formula for success. You know, patents, you know, some big company comes in and breaks your patent. You know, you don't have the money to fight them anyway. So what's the point of getting worried about it before you even start? Critical thing is get moving.
Right, absolutely. You got to get started, and you know, you have to, you know, write out your plan and then execute your plan.
That's right.
Now, it's a lot of big brands all over the world. You know, Jeff Bezos, he's the owner of Amazon,
Right.
and he makes around, you know, $19 million a day.
Right.
And you know, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, you know, they was a part of that great brand, which is the Apple brand. And in 5 years, they grew that brand to $119 billion. So when Steve Jobs passed away, unfortunately, he had $119 billion in the bank cash, liquid, because they helped build that brand to what it is today. But they had teams all over the world. What would you say was the recipe for Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs taking the Apple brand to a whole nother level?
Well, in the places where I speak, you know, I'm full of entrepreneurs in the audience, right? Mm-hmm. And they're all talking about, oh, I'm going to make $1 billion. You know, every Jeff Bezos made $1 billion and Steve Jobs made $1 billion. I'm going to make $1 billion. Well, you can't make $1 billion just by being clever and having a good team. You can't do it, right? Mm-hmm. Because you may have, you need two things. You've got to have a disruptive technology, either a product or a service. Mm-hmm. But the other part of it, you have to have a societal shift that takes whatever you have and runs with it, right? Mm-hmm. Now you can control the IP, you can control product, you control the teams, you can control financing, but you have no control over the society, right? Mm. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and Amazon and Apple fall into this too. But when I was starting UGG, there was a company up in Oregon called Blue Ribbon, and they were importing these running shoes from Japan, right? Mm-hmm. And they were trying to sell them through all of these different running outlets, through you know, high schools and college groups. They were trying to get all the athletics teams to use their shoes, and trying to get into basketball, and then, you know, they've been advertising in all the running magazines, and then suddenly the sport of jogging takes off, right? This was in the early 80s. And this company changed their name to Nike at the same time. And who was the best product for running in the market? Well, it was this company, Blue Ribbon, but now they're Nike, and they've been doing all this advertising. So when jogging took off, Nike got sucked into this vortex of demand and went into the millions and the hundreds of millions and the billions, right? Mm-hmm. And at the same time, there was a company in Santa Monica, and they were importing these little white kid leather shoes from England, and they were trying to get into the dance studios and dance markets, and, you know, they were trying to get into the cheerleading teams through all the colleges, and they were advertising, you know, how light and good these shoes were and how great they were for dancing and everything. And suddenly the sport of aerobics takes off, right? And guess who that brand was? That was Reebok. And Reebok was the best shoe for the aerobics market. So when aerobics as a societal shift takes off, it sucks Reebok along, and they got into millions and the hundreds of millions and the billions. And Apple with the little iPod music, that's where they really made their big break. The society went 100% into free music, basically. And Bezos with Amazon, he started in the book industry, and that was just when online shopping was beginning and the whole society went there. So that's why everybody gets into the billions. It's not because of the product or their brilliance. It's that something that they invented, just like, let's look at what happened with Zoom. I gave a talk to Zoom about 18 months ago, right, to their corporate head, about 400 or 500 people in their corporate headquarters. And they were all saying, well, hey, they were doing maybe 200 million. And they're going, oh, we'd really love to be in the billions. And I'm saying you cannot get to the billions unless there's a societal shift, right? And guess what happens when COVID comes along? Everybody can't go to the office. What do? A society shifts and now has to go online. Well, who's there? Zoom's there. So now Zoom's in the billions, right? So do you see the importance of the societal shift? They were struggling to beat 200 million. And suddenly they're a billion because of nothing they knew about took them over and sucked them into the billions. So it's fascinating.
They readjusted their structure, and now they're worth billions of dollars because everybody basically took their shows and put them on the Zoom platform.
Right. Yeah.
And now everybody's doing their show basically from the comfort of their own home.
Yep. That's what it takes to be a billion. Not easy.
Wow. Now, Warren Buffett and his business partner, Charlie Munger, they basically are value investors. They basically invest in profitable companies where they only invest in companies that has great top line revenues in their businesses. How would you view Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger's approach in regards to entrepreneurs? Like, should entrepreneurs take that approach that's into buying and selling businesses, or should they, really get connected to a coach that really knows about mergers and acquisitions?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to find many entrepreneurs that have the financial ability to do what Warren Buffett does, right? He's built slowly and steadily over. There's a perfect case if you can't give birth to adults, right? He started out crawling and then, became, owner of a few companies that financed more companies that financed. So he went right through the whole youth, teenage phase, and, he's a huge company now. Entrepreneurs, if you have a desire as an entrepreneur to build a conglomerate like that, you're gonna really need a lot of merger and acquisition, brains to get you there. But they're expensive as well. I wouldn't put entrepreneurs in that capacity. I think entrepreneurs are the good, the inventors who come up with one idea or one philosophy on how to do something, raise the money, and then do it. Now, having done that, like if they're super successful, like Bezos, then you can invest in anything you want. Then you go talk to Warren Buffett and his buddies, and see what they're doing. But it's sort of out of the question for an entrepreneur to get into that business the way I see it.
Yes, I know Jeff Bezos, they are thinking about, getting into buying Whole Foods markets.
Yeah, they did that already. Yeah.
Wow. And I think he was thinking about getting into the prescription business in regards to people that need their medicine. So, they can go online on the Amazon platform and, they can get their, prescriptions filled, or, if they have high blood pressure, they can get their pills, sent directly to their door. But if he does that, that means that the pharmaceutical business and the CVS's, the Rite Aids, the Walgreens, they pretty much going to be out of business if Jeff Bezos takes over that platform.
Well, yes and no. I mean, he's got every product you could think of that's already online, but it's not means everybody else has gone out of business. you know.
Mm.
So it will affect the sales of these
Mhm.
other companies, but I don't think it'll ever replace them.
Mm.
And there's a lot of red tape involved in that, making sure you don't have fraudulent prescriptions and stuff. So yeah.
Alrighty. Brian, I wrote down some powerful words, 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. So you can rate them in your own influential way. Are you ready?
Okay.
Accountability.
That's critical. Do I have to rate them 1 to 10?
10 being the highest and 1 the lowest.
Yeah, accountability is up there at 9 and 10.
Perseverance.
10 for sure.
Value.
Value to the customer is any 7 and up, because you can get away with not being perfect, but you've got to have consistent value.
Family.
Family is really important, and even if you're divorced, the closer you can be with your ex and the kids, the better. Family is the building block of society, and it should be really, really treasured.
Love.
Love is, in the sense of unselfish love, is a 10. That's what I aspire to. I'm not saying love unconditionally. That's bullshit. Someone who's continually hurting you, you can't love them unconditionally. I never believe in that. But loving unselfishly is that, no matter what you do, I will love you, but I'm not going to let you fuck up my life. That's the love that I think is the most important. And if everybody could unselfishly love their neighbor and everyone they work with and everyone they meet in the store, that would be a beautiful, beautiful society.
Health.
Health's super important. Yeah, that's a 8, 9, 10. It's tough during these pandemic days to, when the gym's closed, it's hard for me to keep getting enough exercise,
Wealth.
Not important. The real wealth is being content with who you are. When I sold Ugg, I had millions of dollars in the first time I ever had a savings account, millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I, we decided, okay, we'll get new carpet for the house, and we bought her a Honda minivan, and that's all we spent. And it was quite funny because we looked at each other and said, well, shit, we must have been living like millionaires all along, but we never had any money. But so wealth is not, when I'm talking wealth, I'm talking money wealth. It is not important at all, as long as you've got a sufficient amount to live and eat well, and maybe leave a little bit for the children. That to me is, you can't take it with you. Look at how much did you say, what's his name, Steve Jobs left behind?
119 billion in the bank. Liquid.
So what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point?
Mm.
He should have given all that to charity. He should have done something with it. That's bullshit, just having all that money. Wealth is totally overrated. Money's important. That's a 9, because you got to be able to pay the rent, bring the food in, and make a few vacations every now and again, and put the kids through school. So money is important, but just having enough money is the most important thing.
Empowerment.
That's something that grows as you develop. It is important, but when you're 10 years old, it's not that important. When you're 20 years old, it becomes more important. And in your 30s, you start to want to break away from believing what everybody tells you should believe, and empowering yourself. So as you grow, that empowerment becomes more important.
Marketing.
In any business, and marketing yourself, I guess, it is important, but you got to really figure out what you want to be important for, what your customer want, and then figure out how to give it to them.
Sales.
Sales is critical, because, someone's got to, sign something that puts the money in the bank, and that's a sales transaction. So sales is always your goal, but you know, once you've got enough sales, then it becomes, it's still important, but you can start using the money from the sales in different ways.
Top line revenue.
That's important, but not nearly as much as bottom line.
EBITDA.
Same thing. That's your bottom line. That is important.
Brainstorming.
That's always good to do. We found a lot of the breakthroughs in UGG came from getting all the guys together after work with a few beers, and we made some pretty real good decisions on our marketing and advertising in those carefree environments.
Challenges.
That's life, man. That's what makes you grow. If the greatest affliction is never to have been afflicted, right? You don't have the bad times and the down times, you're never going to grow.
Culture.
Coaching's important. It didn't exist when I started out, but I've seen a lot of good coaches recently, and you just got to find a coach who has been around and knows the way things work. But now there's, you know, you can spend, you know, $2,000 and go through a coaching course and suddenly you're a coach and you know nothing, you know. So you need someone who's got a really good background in and success rate in coaching.
Culture.
That's what I just talked about. Yeah.
Oh, you must thought I said coaching. I said culture, like developing a culture.
A coach. Yeah. Well, I coach people, but I think I like calling it mentoring better, because I've been around the tracks. You know, I've been, you know, burned. I've had really successful businesses. I've had failure businesses. I feel like I've got the validation to coach. But someone who's 19 or 20 and does a coaching course, I don't believe has that same credibility.
Intellectual property.
Got to have it. If it's available, you got to protect it.
Private labeling.
Private labeling. It's just a different form of selling your product. Got to be careful you don't hurt the core product by doing that. But it's possible.
Licensing.
Again, depends on your product. If I've had companies that I had a technology that I licensed, it can be good because it saves your own capital. But I only got a few minutes left, so I hope the list isn't too much longer.
Technology.
Technology, you got to use it. Like when I started out, you know, the first desktop computers, when I sold UGG, the first desktop computers were just starting to show up on desks. And I can remember thinking to myself, what are these emails? I'll never need to learn emails, you know? But, you know, as life goes on, you have to.
All right, that was good, Brian. That was real good.
Yeah. Well,
Can you explain to the audience exactly where they can find you?
Okay, I'm at Brian, probably the best is Brian at Ugg Founder. That's uggfounder.com. And that goes to my website also. And yeah, if anybody wants to contact me, especially about getting more involved with the Lash, the live action shopping, that'd be really fun. So contact me through there. And, you know, and the book, The Birth of a Brand, it's available on Amazon. So you can always find me from the back of that book as well.
Brian, I appreciate you coming on my show today, because the whole premise of my show is to educate entrepreneurs and business owners on a national, international scale that they can live the life that they truly desire, but they have to be open to these important principles. So I don't like what I see what's on the news, so I create my own news.
Way to go, Arthur. Well, thanks for having me, buddy.
Do you have any last pearls of wisdom for the audience?
Yep, my favorite talk, you know, my favorite quote from my talk on stage is that the quickest way for a tadpole to become a frog is to live every day happily as a tadpole. Right? So just keep trying to get better and better at what you're doing every day and enjoy it. And, you know, one day you look back and go, oh, shit, look, I'm a frog, you know. But just enjoy every day happily as a tadpole.
And before we sign off, what current businesses are you currently working on right now?
Just Lash. You know, I've told you about that.
Wow. Wow. Now, going into the future, are you thinking about getting into another business that you're thinking about building?
No, I'm just focusing on Lash right now, one thing at a time.
Wow.
Okay,
Brian,
I've got another call coming, so I got to let you go, or you got to let me go.
all right, Brian, I'd like to thank you once again for taking time out of your busy schedule to educate me and the audience worldwide about your phenomenal brand that you was a part of, the Ugg Boots brand, and about the power of building wealth and building a brand. I gladly appreciate it. You are a gift from God.
Thank you, my friend. Keep well. Good luck to all of you listeners.
To everyone that's listening, I highly recommend get involved with the phenomenal Brian Smith. You hit the passion that came through his voice on my show today, and go get his book, The Birth of a Brand. And you can get that on Amazon. And he has phenomenal content that could take your mindset and your business to a whole nother level. But remember, you have to implement what you learn. So to everyone that's listening and watching, remember that the strongest asset that each and every one of you have is your brain, and what you think about and what you take action on, that will become your reality, and your mentality creates your reality. May God bless each and every one of you, and bye for now. Thank you, Brian.
All right, my pleasure. Bye-bye.
Have a pleasant day, everyone.